All right, anatomy, welcome to the third and final notes of the lymphatic system. For many of you, this will be the last notes you ever have with old Coach Hicks. So a little tear shed for all of that. Anyway, let's get to work. In the first two sections, we dealt with the lymphatic system, just a little bit about it. We saw that it's like the garbage man of the body. It helps take care of us, helps get rid of the things that might make your body sick or not work as effectively as it ought to. Looking backwards, just seeing what you just had yesterday, I believe, mainly dealt with pathogens, infections, and ways that our body helps keep it out. The third line of defense that we talked about yesterday was immunity. Immunity, how our body gains this defense. We can see parts of your immune system here, T cells, B cells, all that good stuff, white blood cells, and also antibodies that are proteins that get an image, if you will, of certain pathogens so that they can fight those pathogens when they come back. Today we're just kind of wrapping it up with some various topics, starting out with immunizations. These are commonly called vaccinations. What these do is it gives you a little taste, a little sample of the pathogen, if you want to think of it that way. It exposes your body to a form of that pathogen that will not make you sick. So that way that your B cells and your T cells can gain these antibodies without being exposed. This is a great thing. You see here in this middle section, immunizations introduce the body to an antigen in a way that doesn't make the person sick. Instead, it produces antibodies. That way, your body has a copy, it has a memory, if you will, of these pathogens that you might be exposed to. So when you're exposed to them, boom, the immune system is already ready to go. Now, this last sentence down there, vaccinations contain weakened or dead pathogens or their components. That is how most immunizations have been formed. The COVID-19 vaccine is super new, and it's something that I'm very, very excited about because it uses mRNA technology. Instead of just giving you this watered down, this partially exposed part of the pathogen, it actually uses your body's naturally occurring DNA and RNA production to code for it. There is nothing weird about it. I have videos upon videos upon videos of things that could show you, exactly what goes in the mRNA, but I'm telling you, it's the future. It's what's been trying to be developed for the last 20 years, and finally we had an influx of cash that our government decided to put out for the COVID-19 vaccine. So instead of using weakened pathogens, it actually codes for antibodies to make your body make them. It's really, really interesting when you dig down into it. I promise you there's nothing that's going to turn you into a dog or a wolf or anything crazy. It's not going to change your DNA. That's impossible. Instead, it just uses the system that's already in place to manufacture antibodies, which is really interesting. mRNA technology. Anyway, they're vaccinations or immunizations. The whole goal is to prevent serious, life-threatening diseases. I mean, you can see a list of them here that we are no longer, some of these are we're no longer, having in our culture, at least in America, because of vaccinations. Things like polio, that less than 100 years ago was killing a large number of people. Children today don't have the chicken pox or measles, mumps, and rubella like I once did when I was a kid, and that was only 30 years ago or so that I had chicken pox. Now, you don't have to. Vaccinations take away those serious threats, and that is a good thing. Vaccinations are really, really helpful. We certainly wouldn't be living to the extent that we are today if it weren't for vaccinations. There's three types of immunity that humans get. Okay, here's the short version of it, and we'll get a little more in depth. Innate immunity. These are natural immunities that occur in the body. They include the external barriers of the body. So think about the skin. It keeps us immune innately or naturally from some pathogens. We have adaptive immunity. This involves those lymphadocytes, the cells of the lymphatic system, and they develop through our lifestyles, through exposure to live pathogens or immunizations. You might have heard it said before that, hey, kids need to play in the dirt. Kids need to be exposed to germs. And to an extent, they do, because what happens is, as a child, you're playing on the ground and you lick your hand, man, some of those germs got in. Thankfully, your lymphatic system is hard at work. It's hard at work exposing you or creating antibodies against some of the antigens that you take in. Those B cells, those T cells, they remember those pathogens, and you don't get as sick to them later on in life. It's also a reason when you go to start kindergarten or first grade, it seems like your kid's sick all the time. It's because they're getting used to those things. But once they get used to them, once they're exposed to them, they develop this adaptive immunity to those pathogens. Immunizations are the same thing. It's giving you a sample, giving you a little bit of exposure to keep you from fully being exposed and possibly exposed ever again. And then there's passive immunity. This is almost like a borrowed immunity that lasts for a short period of time. The best example that we can give you is mother's breast milk does have certain antibodies in it that give an infant temporary immunity to certain pathogens or antigens that they're exposed to. So that's really cool. When we talked about reproduction, we mentioned that formula is just as good. Even some formulas now, they can't give you these antibodies, but they can give you certain. They'll put certain vitamins and things in it that can boost a newborn's immune system, so that when they are exposed to certain pathogens, they can handle it pretty easily. Sometimes you may have to give a newborn, if you're not doing breast milk, breastfeeding, certain, not medications wouldn't be a good word, but vitamins and nutrients. And you even can put it inside the formula with little droppers and things. It's pretty cool. So definitely might want to get those. But a mother's breast milk normally has certain antibodies within it. It's cool how the body takes care of ourselves, and not only us, but our future generations. I wanted to put the flu in here because it's so prevalent. We hear about it every year. It's influenza, shortly known as the flu, more commonly known as flu. It's a viral infection, so a virus causes this infection of the respiratory tract, and you can see symptoms listed there, or you've probably had the flu before, and there you go. It's spread airborne from person to person. So coughing, sneezing into the air, it can travel on particles in the air, and then we breathe it in. This is why we say cover your mouth when you cough, cover your mouth when you sneeze. We want you to wear a mask now with the COVID vaccine, but man, the flu numbers have really gone down this year too, thanks in large part to people wearing masks or people just being more aware of, I don't want to cough on them, or not being around people that are coughing. It is a viral infection, so it's a virus that sets up. Also, there are many different strands of it, so you might hear, with the flu vaccine also, it only contains a certain number of strands. It's a best guess, honestly, of which strands are going to be more prevalent this year. So there is definitely a possibility of taking the flu vaccine and then still developing the flu because of different strands. COVID-19 is a coronavirus with a certain strand, a certain makeup within itself. There are lots of different coronaviruses, okay? Lots and lots of different, including the common cold, which there is no vaccine for. All right, so there's 4 categories of immune system disorders. So these are disorders that directly affect the immune system. One is called an amino deficient disorder. These can be either primary or acquired. This simply means that part of the immunodeficiency, part of the immune system is not present or it's not working properly. The name gives it away, amino deficient. The immune system is being deficient or not as good as it should be. Primary immunodeficient disorders, that means they're born without or with this immunodeficiency. If you ever, then there was a comedy movie a few years ago called Bubble Boy, but there's a real immunodeficiency, severe combined immunodeficiency, or SCID. It's called Bubble Boy disease. There's real people born with without B cells or T cells. So think about that. If they're exposed to any type of pathogens, these antigens that ride on those, they can't develop a memory for them. So anytime they're exposed to it, they're going to get sick from it time and time and time and time again. Whereas me and you, most of us, our B cells, our T cells, develop that memory, and they're able to make a copy of that pathogen, and we won't get exposed to it anymore because the antibodies against those pathogens are already prevalent in our body. This kid or these people would not be able to develop antibodies in the same way that we do, so making them exposed all the time. They get the name. A lot of times they were put inside bubbles to keep them from being exposed to pathogen. They would live inside these plastic bubbles, simply to protect them. Acquired immunodeficiency disorder, there's a couple of them. These develop after a person acquires it, has the disease or acquires that disease, has an infection or produced by drugs and medications. HIV, which can lead to AIDS. HIV is a virus that leads to AIDS. We talked about it in the reproductive system. This slowly and steadily destroys the immune system. It destroys the helper T cells. So it makes your body susceptible to those pathogens over and over and over again. And that is what kills somebody with HIV. After they developed AIDS, autoimmune deficiency syndrome, they can't fight off the infections like me and you can. Also, chemotherapy treatment. The thing about chemotherapy is great at killing cancer cells, but it's also really good at killing other healthy cells. So people's immune system, these B cells, these T cells, are also destroyed most of the time with chemotherapy. So if you have somebody going through chemotherapy, which some of you may have seen before, they can typically very easily expose to other types of sicknesses. And that's, sadly, sometimes people die from that, from pneumonia or even influenza, the flu, after having chemotherapy because their body's immune system has been compromised. That's why it's really important if you're going through chemotherapy to treat cancers, you also limit your exposure to other things. There is autoimmune disorders. This is a different type. This is when the immune system mistakenly attacks or destroys healthy body tissue. So you still have an immune system. Your immune system is great. In fact, it's too great. There's 80 different types of autoimmune disorder. It's where our immune system incorrectly reads something in our body that's being produced naturally as a threat. Rheumatoid arthritis is a very common one. This is a disease in which the body's immune system starts attacking these joints where this cartilage and the synovial fluid is naturally occurring. So the hands, knees, and feet, your body's attacking it. It treats it as a pathogen, even though it's not. Lots of autoimmune disorders out there. There's some, if we had more time probably in class these next couple weeks, we would do some research on autoimmune, but here we are. So just know there's lots of them. They are fairly common. So there's a good likelihood that you will, probably develop some type of autoimmune disorder. They do develop throughout life. Some people are born with them. Some people it occurs after puberty, and some people even later on in life. You don't see a lot of toddlers walking around with rheumatoid arthritis, but you see a lot of grandmas walking around with it. There's allergic disorders. This is a overreaction of our immune system to certain allergens that our body comes in contact with. Most of us probably have some type of allergy. Thankfully, most of us are very light in the way that we respond to it. Pollen, environmental, seasonal allergies, these are very, very common. I joke around that I get allergies twice a year, and it really is when certain blooms come out. It's not enough for me to really worry about it. My throat's not closing up like some people that are exposed to certain things. Just some swelling of the sinus cavities, the nasal cavity, the watery eyes, sneezing. You can also have drug allergies, absolutely. Certain medications. Food allergies are not uncommon. Things like nuts, shellfish. My wife developed a shellfish allergy later on in life. She could eat shrimp and things like that until the last couple of years. So now she can't eat it, or her throat starts closing up and may need an epinephrine shot. You can also have allergies to certain toxins. Things like bee stings or bites from insects, and also animal dander and scratches. So you can have allergies for a lot of things. And then there's also cancers of the immune system, and this is the last type of disorder that goes with the immune system. Common ones that we know of, that we hear a lot, leukemia and lymphoma. And this is when these immune system cells, they grow out of control. Your lymph nodes can certainly become a place, because that's kind of where they hang out. These cells hang out. They become swollen. You can also develop these types of cancers from other cancers. You hear about, go into the lymph nodes. You can have lymphoma is a very common example of a type of immune system cancer. And then last slide of the entire year, just throwing this in here, shingles. Shingles is caused by the same virus that causes the chicken pox. This virus can lay dormant in your body for years and years and years and years. Shingles appears as a painful rash, red patches of skin, small blisters that look very similar to early chicken pox if you've ever seen somebody with that. Shingles typically develop later on in life. The reason I'm telling you is because people oftentimes will get it after high school and when they start careers and colleges, and they may have had this virus before, and now they suddenly have this outbreak. What the heck is this on me? Feet, back, joints are very common places to see shingles. Anyway, please use this information to answer the quiz and any other assignments that you have coming up. It's been nice having you in class.